morning, everyone, and welcome to Christ Lutheran Vail Church. You're watching an online version of our worship service. We're happy that you've joined us this morning. Christ Lutheran Vail is here to share the love of Jesus and to help you with your walk with God. However you're watching this morning, don't forget to subscribe to YouTube. You can click on the subscribe button or follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And don't forget to check out our website, christlutheranvail.org. All of these are designed to help you as you grow in your faith. God has showered us with His love and His blessing. I stand out here in Vail this morning and I'm amazed at God's creation. This year, Christ Lutheran Vail is focusing on leadership. I believe the Bible is an incredible book that teaches about leadership, discipleship, and the link between the two. Today's message will build upon that theme, and I pray that you are blessed. Before we continue, though, please take a moment to connect with each other on the comments and then join with the praise band as we lift up this time to God.
Love, like the skies are wide, crashing down to bring the world to life. Hope came dancing on an empty grave. Death has lost its rule to the King of grace. Be the crown in the light and sound. Be the fire burning inside out. Be the love casting out all fear. Let your name rule the atmosphere. Love, like the skies are wide, crashing down to bring the world to life. Hope came dancing on an empty grave. Death has lost its rule to the King of grace. Be the crown in the light and sound. Be the fire burning inside out. Be the love casting out all fear. Let your name rule the atmosphere. And we owe it all to Jesus. Sin and all its shame deleted. Death and all its chains defeated. And the light we see is Jesus. And the air we breathe is freedom. And the sound that knows no fear. Your love rules the atmosphere. Atmosphere. Oh. Whoa, whoa. Be the crown in the light and sound. Be the fire burning inside out. Be the love casting out all fear. Let
ways. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from thee. Take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power as you choose. Here am I, all of me. Take my life, it's all for thee, it's all for thee. Take my will and make it thine, it shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own, it shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at your feet, its treasure store. Take myself, and I will be ever only all for thee. Here am I, all of me. Take my life, it's all for thee, it's all for thee. Here am I, all of me. Take my life, it's all for thee. Take myself, and I will be ever only all for thee.
Christ Lutheran Vail is here to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our world. The early church gathered to serve the world, and we are encouraged by their example. If you have given to us before, we thank you for your gift. If you would like to give, please take a moment to look on the screen and see the various ways that you can support our mission to help people on their journey to discipleship. We are grateful for everyone who partners with us to serve Vail and beyond. As we continue our series on discipleship and leadership, I pray that God's word fills you today. Kowski was once running down the street, jogging down the street, and he saw a building on fire. A woman was standing 3 floors up on a ledge holding her pet cat in her arms. "Hey lady," yelled Gronk, "throw me the cat." "No," she cried, "it's too far." "It's okay," he said. "I play football. I can catch him. You can trust me." Smoke was billowing from the windows, and it didn't look good. And finally, the woman waved to Gronkowski, kissed her cat goodbye, and threw the cat as hard as she could. And Gronk kept an eye on the cat. But as it was coming hurtling towards him, the feline bounced off an awning. And he sprang into action. He ran into the street, he jumped 6 feet into the air, and he made a spectacular one-handed catch of this cat. The crowd that had gathered to watch the fire saw this whole thing and immediately broke into raucous applause about this tremendous feline reception. Gronk was pleased. He did this little dance. He lifted the cat high into his air, into the head, above his head. He wiggled his knees back and forth, and then he spiked the cat into the pavement. Well, now Gronk is not playing today, but soon most of you will watch this game between the Chiefs and the Eagles. I have a little side bet that the Eagles will win today, and if the Chiefs win, I have to buy someone a couple tacos at Taco Bell. But if the Eagles win, someone's going to buy me a nice steak at some nice steakhouse somewhere. Do they have any Ruth Chris steakhouses in Tucson? Of course, I'm not too worried about losing. You know what they call a Kansas City Chiefs fan holding a bottle of champagne, don't you? A waiter. I'm always so amazed at how worked up people get about this game today. I just saw a video of a guy who was watching another game, and something on his team happened, and he got upset, and he actually got up, picked up his TV, and threw it on the ground, smashing it into bits. Hundreds of dollars of damage because of a football game. I mean, really, people? It's just a game. Well, actually, it's more than a game, right? Advertisers today will spend $450 million in advertising. And Fox will receive $600 million in profits today. And that doesn't include all of the other billions of dollars that will exchange hands today because of this one game. This week, someone shared that they have a family member who is actually going to the game. And I think they spent $8,000 a ticket for 2 tickets. My friends, that is crazy. That's a lot of money. My sister lives about a mile from the stadium where the game is being played today, and she's going to stay home and not go anywhere near the traffic that's going to happen there. Emotions are high today. People get crazy, and mistakes will be made. One team will win, and the other team will go back home to Kansas City. Let's play an experiment to see who is a Chiefs fan. No, we won't do that. I don't want to start a fight in the middle of today, right? It wouldn't look good. Fight breaks out at a church because of the Super Bowl game. Now, some people love a good fight. I mean, truly live off of a good fight. And others, they hate conflict. You know, we're all created differently. But whether or not you enjoy conflict or you hate conflict, if you are a leader in the world, you will have conflict in your life. One of the things for certain is that we are all sinful people and we all get angry with each other. And if you are leading people, conflict will come to you. Humans are imperfect. Conflict happens. We're in our series on leadership and discipleship and the link between the two. And I believe that the Bible is one of the best leadership books there is out there. We have been looking at Paul's letter to Timothy. And today we're going to learn about another thing that happened. And this is a conflict that was happening in Ephesus. Paul hears about it and he writes a letter to Timothy. And he gives him some practical advice about how to deal with conflict. And if you're a leader, this advice will probably be good for you to hear also. Now, just to set this up, Paul left Timothy at the church in Ephesus. And Paul put him there, but the congregation, there's these 2 guys in the congregation. Their names are Hymenaeus and Philetus. And they are teaching false doctrines that the general resurrection at the end of time has already happened. And this is dividing the church. But it's a false doctrine, and Timothy, who's the leader at Ephesus, well, he has to deal with this. And so here's what Paul writes. We're going to begin reading in 2 Timothy chapter 2, and we're going to begin reading in verse 14, where Paul says, "Keep reminding God's people of these things. Warn them before God against quarreling about words. It is of no value and only ruins those who listen. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth." Now, what's going on here is Paul says, keep reminding them of these things, of the truth. Warn them about quarreling, and don't be ashamed and make sure that you correctly handle the truth. The truth. Remind them of the truth over and over and over again. When you go astray, or when they go astray, bring them back with what? The truth. The truth, my friends, is powerful. One of the tools we have in leaders, that leaders have in their tool belt, is the truth, right? The truth is a powerful weapon, and it does so much. So one word of advice I have for you, if you're a leader and you're involved in conflict, is just simply go back to the truth. Jesus talks about the truth. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He says, the truth shall set you free. He says, speak the truth in love. Jesus is all about the truth, 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 truth. And it is powerful. And have you ever thought about why the truth is powerful? Because it's hard to argue with the truth. I'm not saying that people won't try to argue with the truth. I'm just saying it's a hard thing to argue against. Truth is power. Let's say that you wanted to debate who was the best quarterback in the NFL. Well, one of the things that you could do is you could get together with somebody and you could say, okay, what makes a good quarterback? How many passes did they throw? How many of them were completed? How many touchdowns did they score? How many yards did they have? You could come up with a whole list of things, but then you could actually go back into the record and you could pull it up and you could see exactly how many things the quarterback did, each of these things. You could weight it or whatever you come up with, and you would come up with an answer. And that would be the answer. Of course, no quarterback works in isolation. Oftentimes they're working with the team, and so you have to factor in the team too. But eventually you could go and get the facts, the data, and you could calculate something. Maybe you pre-agree on it, and that would be the answer. Whatever it is, if you could agree on the formula, you could go back and figure out who it is. But what do most people do? They don't go back to the facts, right? They go with their opinion. And everyone has their own opinion. And everyone has their own spin. You can argue opinion. You just can't argue facts. And if a person stays with facts over opinion, they're much more believable and trustworthy, and they will have something that will never fail them. Because you can argue an opinion, but it's really hard to argue a fact. But boy, is it hard to separate fact from opinion today. Just because something is on the internet or written in a book or in a newspaper does not necessarily mean that it's true. Just because it was said by an expert doesn't even necessarily mean it's true. We are awash in experts and we are awash in information, but it almost seems like today trying to get to the truth is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Two news items caught my eye this week. The first one was this Chinese balloon. Did you hear about the Chinese balloon that started off in the Montana area and worked its way east across the United States? And apparently this balloon was something to do with China, and we don't know what was on the balloon or what the purpose of the balloon was and whether or not they're going to shoot the balloon down. But eventually they did shoot the balloon down, right? And you had these images of this F-22 coming and launching a missile to the balloon, and it blew up into smithereens and it fell to the ground. And everybody saw this. Everybody believed that it happened. But the same day that I saw this story, there was another story about how some investigative journalist has decided that this Nord Stream 2 Russian pipeline was actually destroyed by the US military. So in one instance, you have this balloon and everybody sees it being destroyed and everybody's celebrating it's destroyed. But then you have this other Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which apparently is also a threat to the United States, and somehow it miraculously gets blown up and nobody in the government will say that it was whether or not it was the United States or not. It's all secretive, right? And so what are we to believe? Who are we to believe? What is the truth? And it's hard to know. The truth is difficult to get to because sometimes people have an agenda about the truth. And when people with agenda get involved in the truth, I'm not sure the truth comes out anymore. And I don't know who to believe. Spin looks like fact. Fact looks like spin. And you may think, well, this is something new because of the internet, or it's something new because of the world that we live in. But let me tell you something. It's always been this way, pretty much since the beginning of mankind. Timothy probably had to deal with people who were spinning things to show without a doubt that the resurrection happened. You know, if you say a lie long enough, pretty soon people will begin to believe it. And my friends, it takes hard work to determine what is truth and what is spin. 100 years ago, the author G.K. Chesterton once wrote this. He said, "What we suffer from today is humility in the wrong place. Modesty is moved from the organ of ambition, and modesty is settled upon the organ of conviction, where it was never meant to be. A man was meant to be doubtful about himself, but undoubting about the truth. And this has been exactly reversed. Nowadays, the part of a man that a man does assert is exactly the part that he ought not to assert, himself. And the part that he doubts is exactly the part that he ought not to doubt, which is divine reason. We are on a road to producing a race of men too mentally modest to believe in the multiplication table." Basically, what Chesterton's saying in fancy language is this: truth has become spin, spin has become truth, and when truth gets out of control, we produce a generation of people who believe that 2 + 2 = 5, as opposed to 2 + 2 = just checking, 4. And if you are a leader, start with the truth. Even when it's difficult, the truth always surfaces, always. It's hard to put a lid on the truth. It's hard to contain the truth. And at work, if you're in conflict with somebody, you can't go wrong with the truth. Just don't hide the truth, and you won't get into trouble. People need truth. In one company, a manager doctored the report about the profitability of the company. And he was sending it to the owners, and the owners were pleased, and everybody was happy, but eventually the truth came out. And by the time the truth came out, it was too late. And the company was going to have to fold, and hundreds were going to have to lose their job. All of this because one person who could have told the truth hid the truth for his own personal gain. But a little pain today could save a lot of pain tomorrow. And isn't that basically what Jesus says in John 15, when he says that every branch that does not produce must be cut down, and every branch that is producing still has to be pruned so that it produces well. In other words, and the truth is, there are times when the truth has hard consequences, but we need the truth. We can't live without the truth. My friends, don't just tell the truth. Be in love with the truth. And if you're in conflict, truth is your best friend. But Paul goes on. In verse 16, he says this: "Avoid godless chatter, because those who indulge in it will become more and more ungodly. Their teaching will spread like gangrene. Among them are Hymenaeus and Philetus, who have departed from the truth. They say that the resurrection has already taken place, and they destroy the faith of some. Nevertheless, God's solid foundation stands firm, sealed with this inscription: The Lord knows those who are his, and everyone who confesses the name of the Lord must turn away from wickedness." This is where we learn about Hymenaeus and Philetus. We don't know much more than this, just that they claimed that the resurrection had happened, which we know had not happened. And I guess, this was before the internet age and before a lot of written words, so it's probably easy to say things like this and have people follow them. But it wasn't true. And of course, eventually the truth came out. But what's the complaint here? It's the godless chatter. Godless chatter. My mother once said, and my father actually, that if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all. Just don't say anything. And if it's not helpful, why bother? Just stay silent. I know that there are times when we must speak up. We have to speak up. God calls us to speak up because people need to know. But there are many, many times when people get involved in all this chatter that does nothing to benefit anybody. You know about this because we have another word for this godless chatter. That's right. It's called gossip. In a technical sense, gossip is information that may or may not be true, but it is said to destroy somebody else and to not be helpful to the situation. Gossips are those things that people share that either make themselves look good or tear down somebody else. And many times gossip stretches the truth way beyond imagination. I put opinion in the same level as gossip. Now, it's okay to hold strong opinions, and that isn't wrong, or even wrong to share opinions. But make sure that when you share it, it is not tearing down somebody else. And make sure that you're not sharing opinion as fact. Years and years ago, I was involved in transportation modeling. This is where you figure out where the growth is happening, and you have ideas. You put roads into this model, and you figure out what the traffic would be on those roads, so you can figure out where new roads should be built, so that you could get it on the transportation improvement program, and then it gets funded, and you have this whole huge long process. And then you would get governments that would come in and figure out where these roads should go, right? They would try all these types of roadway scenarios to try to figure out where roads would go. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's actually quite helpful. But the thing that everybody seemed to forget is that it's a model. And I can't tell you how many times the model would predict one thing, but it wouldn't actually come out that way. Things change. The world changes. I mean, who could have predicted 20 years ago that we would have automated cars, or that we would have electric cars, or that the growth would happen where the actual growth did happen? Who can predict a light rail corridor? Who can predict a pandemic? All of these things are not predicted by the model. Models are basically just opinion. I mean, they're educated guesses, but they're just guesses. So you have to remember that when you're making decisions about what these models show. Now, is transportation planning gossip? No. But when it is used as a political bludgeon and spun to where it gets things whacked out of the truth, and it is treated as fact, one has to be careful because it can be wrong. Today, people spew out opinion as fact, and it is so easy just to hide behind your keyboard, right? It's easy to destroy someone's life on the internet because you're not looking at them face to face. You're not seeing them eye to eye. I'll post something that is hateful gossip on the internet because it gives me a buzz, someone might say. I call all this electronic courage. It's interesting. Last month, the LCMS, that's the church body of which we're a part of, started publishing and distributing a new catechism, Luther's Large Catechism. And this was supposed to bring it into the 21st century. They had these essays and all these articles to show how to apply Luther's Large Catechism today. And if you know anything about the LCMS, is that it goes through a doctrinal review, a huge doctrinal review, especially something like Luther's Catechism, huge doctrinal review. So it started going out, and somebody somewhere just started blasting this document saying this was wrong with it, and this was wrong with it, and this was wrong with it. And all of these things, hurtful, horrible things, to the point where the president of the LCMS actually stopped production of this book until he could investigate it and look into it. Because it is so easy to gossip. It is so easy to stand behind your computer and say things that are mean and hurtful because you're not looking at the person eye to eye. I'm sure that no person, I'm absolutely positive that no person lost their faith because of anything that was written in Luther's Large Catechism, this new publication. And I'm also pretty sure that nobody came to faith because of anything that was written in Luther's Large Catechism. The Spirit of God works outside of those things, and the Spirit of God is powerful. I do not think it was helpful. You know, one of the things that will kill any business, and you probably know this, is mindless chatter and gossip. Paul is correct. It spreads like gangrene. It's wicked. It's in the realm of Satan. Most good leaders do not allow their company to spend a lot of time on gossip. It can destroy the company. Most good leaders do not allow this. Although I must admit that most of my life I've only worked in small organizations. And I guess it's possible that in rather large organizations where nobody's held accountable or where the accountability is difficult, that there could be a lot of gossip that's not helpful. But one last bit of advice from Paul. He says in verse 22, "Flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. Don't have anything to do with foolish and stupid arguments, because you know they produce quarrels, and the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, and not resentful. Opponents must be gently instructed in the hope that God will grant them repentance, leading them to a knowledge of the truth, and that they will come to their senses and escape from the trap of the devil who has taken them captive to do his will. Speak the truth, don't gossip, and be gentle. Just be gentle. Remember, anyone you lead is a person who deserves gentleness. They've got their own issues and their own struggles, the only things that they're dealing with. See them as a child of God. See them as a loved child of God. It is okay to have conflict with people. But when you have conflict with people, see them as people. What isn't acceptable is to not see these people as fellow children of God. It seems that in larger organizations, the more people we lead become numbers, faceless numbers. It's easy to not see them as individuals. Whatever conflict you find yourself in, don't forget that. If you ever find yourself as a CEO of an organization, remember that everybody in that organization is a loved child of God. I had a long discussion this week with someone who wanted to share with me about this organization. It's called Represent Us, and what they're trying to do is to put laws and regulations on U.S. corporations so that they don't treat people or treat our community poorly. The tagline is, if politicians won't fix America, then we will. And they're looking at trying to find legislation to fight corruption in organizations. Now, can they get this on the ballot and will it actually help? I have no idea. But what I do know is that every corporation is filled with people. And people are good and people are bad. And if you really want to help a society, yeah, you might create a law that tries to make corporations act as better citizens or as better responsible organizations in our world. But the better way is to change the heart of people who run the corporations, who are in the corporations. Luther once says the law doesn't change the heart. The only thing that can change the heart is God's grace and love. So you can put in all the laws that you want to try to make corporations behave better. But according to Luther, the best way is to change the heart of the people inside the corporations. I firmly believe that the only way to get through conflict is to be humble enough to realize that everybody in that conflict is a person too. And to remember also that at some level we were all ourselves in conflict with God. We didn't deserve any grace at all, but God became flesh and came down and dwelt among us and took upon his own conflict so that we would no longer be in conflict with God. And this wasn't anything that we did, but everything that Christ did for us. And when we realize this, when we are truly humble and we realize this, it changes how we see conflict in this world. Instead of seeing conflict as me against another person, we began to see conflict as an opportunity to show God's love and his grace and to be a win for the kingdom, an opportunity for God's grace and love to win. You will all have conflict in your life. And sometimes it will be your fault, and sometimes it will be somebody else's fault. But at its root, it's none of our fault. It's the fault of the human condition where sin reigns and conflict reigns. But the truth came, and gentleness came, and he came without mindless chatter, and he came to be patient with us and to share with us his love and his faith and peace with us so that our conflict with God would cease and our life in him would begin and increase. My friends, whenever conflict arises in your life, draw upon the strength of God. Draw upon his Spirit that gives us strength in the conflict, gives us wisdom and truth and love and grace, because he's shown that to you. Seek that wisdom, seek that grace, seek that truth, and then be his hands and feet to be God's amazing force in this world. Would you join me in prayer? Gracious God, be with me in every conflict of life. Help me to seek the truth. Help me to be gentle. Help me to not gossip. But most of all, Lord, help me to see that because of you, you took away the conflict between me and you. so that I could be your hands and feet in all the conflicts of the world. In your name we pray. Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen. Just a few announcements. First of all, on February 22nd, which is Shrove Tuesday, it's the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday, this is the historical day before Lent begins. And many churches do pancake breakfasts, and we're no different. So on that day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, on that Tuesday, if you want to come join for pancake breakfast put on by the school, you're more than welcome to do that. It'll be a lot of fun. And then the next day, which is February 22nd, is Ash Wednesday. And you can join the school Ash Wednesday service at 9 o'clock. We'll be handing out ashes. At 6 o'clock in the evening, there'll be a pasta dinner. And then at 7 o'clock will be another Ash Wednesday service where we will distribute ashes. You're welcome to join us for that. Also, VBS is coming up in March. We're still looking for lots of things in VBS. So if there's a way that you can help out, please reach out and find out how you can join and help out in VBS. So those are the announcements I have this week. I pray that God richly blesses you this week. Have a great week. Go in peace and serve the Lord with joy. Thanks be to God.